Good morning and welcome to the Arts Express Summer Conference. This conference has been around since 2007. We've been operating for the last 16 years, and the BYU Arts Partnership was founded in 2005, and this conference started in 2007, and we are so glad to have you with us. Is there anyone who's been coming to the conference since way back then? Woohoo! Yay! We have our wonderful friends come back every year. How many of you are here for the very first time? Woohoo! Yes, old friends and new friends, we are so glad that you are here. We want to start today acknowledging the beautiful place where we live here in Utah. Here in Utah, we are living and learning on the ancestral lands of the Ute, the Paiute, the Goshute, the Shoshone, and the Navajo people. And we want to honor the way they were stewards of the land and honor the wisdom that we enjoy from them, from their elders past, present, and future. And add that and augment that with the wisdom of all of the elders and the people who make our communities strong, our families strong, and our school systems strong. And we want to honor all of the wisdom and knowledge from the past, present, and future and bring it here today in this beautiful place where we get to live and learn and grow together. The BYU Arts Partnership, as I said, began in 2005. My name is Cally Flox, and I am the founding director of the BYU Arts Partnership. It is truly a privilege to serve in a place in education that really makes a difference, revitalizing teachers' lives, revitalizing children's lives by bringing the arts into the classroom. Thank you for the work that you do every day, and I'm so grateful to be in the trenches with you, bringing joy into classrooms. We want to thank our sponsors who have donated funding to be here with us. Incredible partners that we have, the 5 school districts, the STEM Action Center, Utah Division of Arts and Museums, National Endowment for the Arts. We have National Endowment for the Arts funding. Is that just amazing? And we have additional partners. The Utah legislature actually gives funding to these professional arts groups to have education programs for your schools. Those of you who are new, I hope you know who the POPs organizations are. Oh, some of them are here. But these are all of our partners. Some of them are POPs groups. Some of them are from the Utah State Office of Education and the Utah Division of Arts and Museums. The Utah Division of Arts and Museums is one of our longest standing partners for this conference, and these are the artists that they have sponsored for us. Our keynote speaker this afternoon, our visiting artist, Frank McIntyre, and who will be presenting with Donna Pence. And then at lunchtime, the Meadowlark String Band. These are being brought to you by the Utah Division of Arts and Museums, as well as tomorrow's keynote speaker, which is the Crossroads Project, and you won't want to miss this. Without the funding support from the Utah Division of Arts and Museums, we would not be able to bring you a nationally known concert, chamber orchestra concert around our science questions of today. And we're really excited to bring you that. If you can go back one slide, James, 1 second. I wanted to point out Frank McIntyre. Frank McIntyre is one of our visiting artists who's here, and he wants to do an interesting project. His question is, how much garbage do we use in 2 days right here at this conference? So you will be invited to take your garbage from lunch. We know we've tried to not use plastic. We've tried to use environmentally friendly things. We've spent extra money to have the app so we could have less printing, and we are working to be environmentally conscious in all the ways that we can, and we'll learn more every year as we continue going on. But Frank's experiment invites you to carry your garbage to the top of the stairs and lay the garbage on a big spiral jetty at the top of the stairs. So at the end of 2 days, we can see how much garbage we created in 2 days. Now, if your garbage makes it into a garbage can, someone else will carry that bag up to the top of the stairs. But if you want to participate in curating that work of art, you can carry your own garbage to the top of the stairs. How does that sound? Okay? Yeah, artists really have push us sometimes and ask us to do interesting kinds of things. So we'll be looking at our garbage today for the next 2 days with Frank. And I hope you'll visit him at his booth. Okay, these are all the POPs organizations. The previous slide said the ones who are here with us. This is all of them. Bring these people to your school. They get funding to come and serve you. There's a website, popsutah.org, I think, and where you can contact them. All their contact information is there, and you can bring professional artists to be with your children in schools to elevate their experiences of the arts. So this is all funding through the Utah legislature, and then you know already about the other great funding in our state for the arts, the Beverly Taylor Sorensen Arts Learning Program. Thanks to great work from designated Beverly was so smart. I hope, how many of you in here were able to meet Beverly before she passed away? Okay, Beverly is why all of this exists. Extraordinary woman, absolute powerhouse. She left funding to actually lobby the legislature every year in perpetuity for the arts. Now that's vision. She left endowments at 7 universities to support elementary arts education. Now that's vision. And what the result of that is this funding, that is our tax funding, contributes to pay for arts educators in all the schools throughout Utah. And of the $27 million needed to fully fund Utah, with a ratio of 1 arts educator per 1,000 students, and that's just a beginning, okay? 1 arts educator can't fully educate 1,000 students, but it means every kid would have access to the arts, and then we get to build from there. Because what we know is the more arts we get in a school, the more arts people want. As soon as they realize the culture changes that happen when the arts are in the school, and the student learning that changes and shifts when the arts are in the school, people want more. And that's what we're going for. We are now, this last legislative session, the lobbyists got $5 million closer to our goal. We are now $5 million away from being fully funded in this program. And in the next year or two, we're on track to be there. $22 million annually. 470 schools now funded, 93% of the school districts in the state. And then I mentioned the grants to the universities. Beverly left quite a dream, and she's left it in your hands. She's left it to us to be sure the children of Utah have a complete and well-rounded education through the arts. We have a social media reel prepared to show you. We hope you'll follow us on social media, and you can see some of the things we're doing with our endowment and our grants at BYU. Next slide. There. So you can see what we're involved in. If you're brand new here, please get involved with our other programs. We want to have you join us. The best way we spread the word is to let people know that the arts are alive and well in our schools. So please help us promote the arts out through social media. One of the ways you can join us is we have an arts integration endorsement. It's a 16 credit hour endorsement. Right now it takes 2 years. We're working on creating a hybrid version for our next cohort to help ease your lives and ease your burdens. So please sign up and get, if you're interested in the endorsement. Okay, just run these next slides. It shows the previous cohorts of the teachers. I think there's 164 teachers that have earned this endorsement with us, and we would love to have you join us. So here's a QR code. If you would like to sign up, there's also a sign-up sheet at the front desk. The next cohort starts next summer. Okay, other professional development. Did you know if you do an arts night, you can earn a micro-credential? And there's a lot of work that you already do that you deserve to get relicensure points and credit for. And micro-credentials are one of your ways to do that. We have set these up through the Utah State Office of Education, and when you're doing an exhibition or you do an incredible piece of advocacy, you document it, you share what you did, and you can earn relicensure points and credit, okay? So please know those micro-credentials in the arts are available. We also have an online course for our Native American Curriculum Initiative. If you were here last summer, we really celebrated our Native American Curriculum Initiative. This is to give teachers the background knowledge needed in order to include Native American content with sensitivity and awareness and thoughtfulness in your classroom, and that course is available. Okay, so many things to participate in. Please join us. Next slide. I want to take a minute and honor one of my dear friends and colleagues. My first year in this job, the dean at BYU knew I needed someone to help with the research on this program, and he hired Deb Escalante. And then she moved over to Utah Valley University as that university grew, has been a professor there, I think, for the last about 15, 16 years. Deb Escalante has a theater degree. She's a wonderful performer, wonderful vocalist. I've watched her in plays over the years. She's been teaching the arts integration course at UVU or overseeing it for many years. She also pulled off a coup. As head of graduate studies at UVU, they have a program where if you have an endorsement, that endorsement can count towards your master's degree at UVU in education. She was able to pull it off, that people who have the arts integration endorsement, we now count on that with the other cool, math and reading endorsements. That endorsement can also be used towards that master's degree at UVU. Deb has been an incredibly supportive colleague. We have written together, we have presented together, we have tried very hard to create a unity in the message between BYU and UVU and how we have served the schools. And as my very dear friend, it is my privilege to present you with our gratitude with this beautiful butterfly, because you've given many wonderful moments. Butterflies don't live a long time. So,
but they fly really far.
That's right. So, as we measure the fleeting moments of our lives, we realize the value. If you only have a 2-week lifespan, your life is measured in moments. And the moments you have created and the gifts you have given to other people to continue creating magical moments is the message of the butterfly. And we won't all be here forever, but we want to pass on a legacy. And Deb, thank you for the legacy that you have passed on. You've made a difference in my life, in the life of so many teachers, and you have left significant, substantial, institutionalized pieces in place for us to stand on your shoulders. Thank you, Deb Escalante. And Deb's lovely daughter, Alyssa Dixon, our conference chair.
Hi, I'm here to just do some housekeeping business for you. Thank you all for being here at Arts Express. We love having you. You are here because you registered for the conference. However, if you would like to receive credit for attending the conference, there is an additional step. A few of you have already done this, but I'm here to remind you that if you haven't, if you would like to receive credit, there's other steps. You have this form in your folder, and if you read all the fine text, it tells you exactly what to do, but I'll sum it up for you. This is an attendance verification form. You take notes to prove that you were here and in your sessions. You turn it in before you leave tomorrow. You also let us know if you would like relicensure hours, USBE credit, or BYU credit. But you still need to go in and register for that credit. You register for relicensure hours and credit through the Midas website with your Cactus ID. If you would like to register for BYU credit, it is $47 through the BYU website. I did just receive some information this morning that it did accidentally get closed early, so I think it's closed right now, but we are working on getting it open before the end of the day today. So if it's not working for you today, make sure you're checking tomorrow. If you have questions about credit, the best place to get information quick is on our website, the FAQ page, or you can go there directly from the app. Let's go to the next slide. There is a module there called FAQ. If you click on that, it'll take you to that page, and there's all those questions about credit. Please read that page if you have questions, and then see the help desk if you need anything else. We hope that you do download the app. There's a lot of great resources there. It also helps us cut down on some printing materials because a lot of the things that we would have printed are right there on the app. It also has the Wi-Fi information. Presenter handouts will be uploaded there, and you will need the email you registered with, and your last name is your password to access those handouts. We hope that you can download it, explore, and in fact, one of the modules on the app is called a scavenger hunt, and if you use the scavenger hunt, let's go to the next slide, to visit all the vendors and scan all the QR codes, you can go to the ticket table and get a ticket to win a prize. We have lots of fabulous prizes this year. We're so grateful to the STEM Action Center for donating a prize, the Utah Film Center for donating prizes, and then the Arts Partnership. We have provided lots of great books, art materials, lots of fun things that you'll want to be entered in to win. And so you can do that by doing the scavenger hunt. You can also do that by showing your reusable water bottle at the ticket desk. You can get a ticket that way. And then other ways to win prizes are to take pictures here at the conference and to tag us on social media. And also after the conference tomorrow, we will be sending you a feedback survey about your experience. And if you submit that, you'll also be entered in a chance to win a prize. And Heather Francis is actually what I call our prize princess, or she might prefer prize president. I'm not sure, but either way, it's an alliteration, so it works. And she is going to come up here. She's going to be in charge of our prizes, but she's also going to be introducing our keynotes for you today. And we know that you are going to love it. And so thank you so much, and enjoy.
Thank you, Alyssa. All right. The prizes are really great. I want to tell you more about them because I am a party person. I am the president, princess, party prize person. And so we have classroom sets of rhythm sticks and dancing scarves and model magic clay. And if you do the survey, we have a teaching artist that we will pay to come and visit your classroom or your school. So those are really great prizes. I really highly suggest participating. Also social media. Love it. Follow us at Every Child, Every Art. And yeah, I'm excited to introduce our keynote presenters today. These are some dear friends of mine, so it's a privilege to share their story and talk about them. So I'm going to introduce first Ben Abbott. Ben Abbott was born in Nashville, Tennessee, and grew up in Orem, Utah. He got interested in science and nature from watching TV. Was it Kratz Creatures? That's what it was for me. And mountain biking in the foothills of Mount Timpanogos. Near the end of his senior year at Orem High School, he was given a pamphlet for a scholarship, the Quinney Scholarship at Utah State University, and he applied to the Watershed and Earth Systems Science program. During his undergraduate degree, he researched in northern Alaska, investigating how fish influence nutrient cycles in Arctic lakes. I'm gonna have to slow down so we can all capture all these great ideas that you've studied. This led to his PhD at the University of Alaska Fairbanks, where he studied the permafrost climate feedback, using interdisciplinary techniques to quantify and predict responses of Arctic and boreal ecosystems to climate change. Can't wait for you to explain that, Ben. That would be so great. I just want to point out this piece of his bio that says interdisciplinary. interdisciplinary. Ben is a lover of many disciplines. He is an artist, he is an educator, he is a scientist, and he is bringing a great package here for us in this keynote presentation. So after that, he worked as a Marie Curie postdoctoral fellow at the French National Science Foundation. While in Western France, he investigated resilience of agricultural catchments and coastal ecosystems to nutrient loading and disturbance from agriculture and urbanization. Again, can't wait to hear more about that. Ben works primarily, though, on the permafrost climate feedback and water quality in river networks. Drawing on biogeochemistry, evolutionary biology, and social science, his research investigates how the co-evolution of landscapes and ecosystems results in broad-scale patterns of biological, hydrological, and socioeconomic behavior. Specifically, he studies how permafrost collapse, agriculture, fire, flooding affect carbon and nutrient cycles in soil, groundwater, rivers, and lakes. He's particularly interested in social and environmental sustainability, science communication, and exploring the Mormon doctrinal and cultural basis for ecological stewardship. He's been married for 10 years and has 4 children who take after him in their love of animals, TV, and biking. For more information, you can visit his blog or the Ben Abbott Lab website that is hosted on the BYU page. There's a beautiful picture of his family and his children. I just want to say the last conversation that I had with Ben left me thinking, wow, I've never thought of it that way. So I'm excited for you guys to listen to him today. Keely, I'll find you, is a dear friend and a fellow dancer. And I love your bio. I'm going to read it. Keely enjoys a good sweat and epic failures. Taking a 7-year hiatus from dance to focus on mothering, she returned to the dance scene after having ACL surgery in 2016 and MPFL surgery in 2020. I've heard her say that she had, her children, and every few years, once she was done having children, she had an injury to mother. So she has some good internal clocks for her journey in life. With a deeper love for the human body and her connection to others, Miss Song's research considers the spaces and times when the identity of the dancer is questioned and paying the gift of dance forward in service and collaboration. I have personally benefited from Keely's work in this way, as the first time I was pregnant with my first child, she gathered 7 pregnant women and we danced together through our pregnancies out in the Bonneville Salt Flats and made a film, and it was probably the only way I held on to my identity as a dancer as my body changed and I experienced something new. So thank you, Keely. Keely currently directs the BYU Contemporary Dance Theater, where she combines dance with ASL integration and storytelling. As a producer and director, her dance films have shown nationally and internationally, including at the Dance on Camera at the Lincoln Center in New York City and the San Francisco Dance Film Festival. When she is not in the studio, you will find her dancing on a snowboard on the Bunny Hill or prancing in the meadows or red rocks of Utah with her family. Again, social media, you got to follow Cally Song because this is true and you can see it all happen on the interwebs. As a teacher, Keely enjoys experimenting and blending various forms of dance genres in order to prepare students for the current phase of contemporary eclectic dance. She's also invested in highlighting and honoring the individual artist, preparing them to be an engaged artist and citizen in the community beyond BYU. Her recent dance film, Air Transit, is an environmental dance advocacy film promoting the use of public transit, filmed on our own Frontrunner and UTA buses. Air Transit highlights her deep commitment towards collaboration, community, and health and environmental improvement. In her spare time, you will find Keely taking capoeira classes, breaking, hiking, at cello lessons with her 3 boys, or eating a donut. The last conversation I had with Keely, I thought, wow, I'm so glad to know this particular species of human. And both are great presenters and humans, and I'm going to turn the time now over to you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Heather. That's the last time we let the president of Parties and Prizes give the bios.
I agree. I was like, I have no idea what's going to be said. I didn't even send a bio. But the donut part is true.
It's one of the things we share most deeply. This goes back a long time. We are so grateful to be here. I think I speak for both of us when I say there is no group that we think is more important. And we are grateful for the work that you do, and most importantly, for the people that you are. It was pretty striking to hear Cally talk about that ratio of 1 arts educator to 1,000 students, and that's the goal, right? That's what we're trying to get to, and then make it better. But that means that each of you is a node in a network, a person of great influence, and that's one of the things that we want to emphasize today in this talk and dance that we've entitled Healing Our Home, Healing Our Hearts. Ooh, that was perfect.
I know, I turned the music like, I can't stop.
So we want to hear from you and make this a conversation. And we're going to use this poll everywhere interface. And I know that technology is always a blessing and a curse. But if you've got a little phone, smart device, you can scan this code. If you've got a less smart device that still has the internet, you can go to pollev.com and then enter Ben554. And that will pull up. And we'll come back to this a few times throughout the presentation. And it'll just cycle through the questions as they come up. So our first question is, okay, and it looks like you've already started. Which of the following T Swift songs best captures your current mood? Okay. Way to go. Who is Taylor Swift? The second most.
That's, yeah.
I'm not going to tell my daughter that you said that. Okay, fabulous. This looks like it's working great. And a variety of moods, right? Ranging from Karma, Gorgeous, Bad Blood, Delicate, and The Man. Okay, we're going to go to the next question. In one word, what environmental problem are you most worried about? There are lots of environmental problems that we hear about and read about. Okay, water, pollution, global warming, climate. Those are things in the physical world. And then it's also interesting to see these feelings, right? Apathy, depression, partisanship, divisions. And you already are capturing one of the key themes that we want to emphasize. We sometimes think about society and ecosystems, right? But society is a part of the ecosystems. Wow, this is an overwhelming word cloud of problems. Water and pollution are, showing up as the most common. So if you were to ask me that question, here's how I would answer. I think that these are the 4 most important environmental problems that we're facing today. Number 1, harm to human well-being from environmental pollution. Number 2, structural decline of life on Earth. Number 3, disruptions of Earth's great cycles. This includes water, carbon, energy, nutrients. And finally, climate change. And there's a distinction here. I care about number 3 and 4 because of how they influence 1 and 2. My values are actually in us, the human family, and us, the family of life, that as far as we know only exists here on this planet. And we have a special role as caretakers of it. Disruption of the Earth's cycles and climate change are important because of how they impact people and other life on Earth. But it's really hard. You know, we live in a world of constant crises where there's always something, there's always a fire to put out. I think that we feel that in our personal lives. If anybody doesn't feel that, please come talk to me after the keynote and teach me your secret. But we go from solving a problem here and then rushing over and solving a problem here. And it's difficult to know, are things really changing? And so if we go back in time, I like to read this quote. The children now love luxury. They have bad manners, contempt for authority. They show disrespect for elders and love chatter in place of exercise. Doesn't this seem like it could be a YouTube video that you just read about millennials or Gen Z? Anybody know who this is? I asked my students this one time, and they said, "Is that Jesus?" No, that's not Jesus. This is Socrates talking in 420 BC. Right? So this reinforces an idea that's quite different for those French speakers in the room. The more things change, the more they stay the same. Right? There's this sense of like, the world's always in crisis. Nothing's ever changing. It's always the same condition. But there's another view that I think is important. This is the Argentinian writer Jorge Luis Borges, who wrote centuries of centuries, and only in the present do things happen. So yes, it's true that there's always been this sense of change. There's always been fear about the next generation. Are they going to share our values? Are they going to do the right thing? But also, there can be change. And I think it's interesting that he wrote this in the 1950s, because that was a transition period in the history of the Earth. In the natural sciences, we split up the history of the Earth into epochs. And we changed from the Holocene into a new epoch, which we call the Anthropocene. So anthro for people. It's a time period that is dominated by people, by humans. We have become the dominant force in the Earth system. And that is quantitatively different than anything that has come before. This has never happened. So I want to show you just a few slides of data to try to convince you that these first two things, the impact on human health, on human well-being, and the impact on life on Earth is important. This is showing different causes of death. My student Isabella Rigo assembled this, recently published these data. So you can see pollution on the top, air, water, occupational and soil pollution there compared to other issues. Now, because one of these bars is small does not mean that it's not important. All of these things are important. We need to be thinking about all of them. But what's surprising to me is we sometimes forget what is the biggest bar. We're much more worried about, am I going to get in a car crash, than what is the quality of the air that I'm breathing? What's the quality of the environment that I live in? And if we look at this, it's really striking. Pollution causes 1 in 4 deaths each year. That's more than all of the violence, all of the communicable diseases, all of the dietary disorders, under and overnutrition all around the world. 99% of the world's population breathes air that's considered unhealthy, including us here in Utah. And air pollution shortens the average Utahns' life by 1 to 4 years. And I shared this data one time with the Utah legislature, and one of our leaders said, that just can't be true. I know people who have died of strokes and cancer and suicide and heart disease. I don't know anybody who's died of pollution. And so I had to take a step back and realize this is complicated, right? With a car crash, you see the cause and effect right there. With environmental pollution and many of the choices we make in our life, there's a time delay. And it's difficult to establish cause and effect. So we took a step back and explained, actually, almost half of the deaths associated with exposure to pollution are heart disease, where the heart breaks down, also strokes, non-communicable diseases, as well as lung cancer and the pulmonary issues that we think of. We've now learned that exposure to pollution is also associated with psychological and mental challenges. You see spikes in domestic abuse and even suicide during periods of high pollution. And this reinforces this fact that we're slowly learning that pollution affects every system of the body at every stage of development. Again, there's no separation between the world around us and our personal well-being. And these are numbers, right? And I want us to always remember the people and the stories. Here's a picture of my mom, who's here today, teaching our daughter, Naomi, how to play piano, right? And these are the people who are affected positively when we create a clean environment, when we take care of one another, and affected negatively when we're careless, when we're not wise caretakers. Now, the second issue, decline of life on Earth. This is more complicated, but the simple story is our choices are affecting every branch of the tree of life. A million species are currently threatened with extinction. That means they're almost gone. There's been an 80% decrease in wild biomass. And every year, 2,000 to 10,000 species are driven to extinction. And I really like this figure. So this shows all of the biomass of all the mammals on Earth, on land and in the sea. And remember, we're living in the Anthropocene. So the only wild animals are here. 4% of the remaining biomass in the Earth system is the wild mammals on the land and in the sea. We and our livestock now represent almost all. And isn't that such an overturning? Now, this isn't necessarily good or bad, right? We've done this for a variety of reasons. But it's important to remember how powerful, how big we are, how much space we're taking up. And this means that every choice matters. And again, these aren't just numbers, these are families. I love these are pictures by Chuck Castleton and Jeff Beck, two local photographers, taken right here at Utah Lake, showing a family of cranes caring for one another and a herd of antelope. So we're talking about real beings. So what is causing these problems? Here are these four big issues. And if I had to separate or just identify two things, the number one driver is dirty energy. The number two driver is unsustainable agriculture. And we're scientists, so we love to put lots of arrows, right, of which of these issues they're causing primarily. And there's also an interaction between all of these dynamics. So I'm going to ask you a question here. This is the only kind of content quiz. But how much of the observed global warming that we've seen is caused by humans? And I really appreciate, one of the things that I like about this format is we can share. In the world, we're so afraid of getting things wrong. And there's this idea, if somebody doesn't have the same beliefs as me, political or religious or personal, then I can't be their friend. And that is not the case. I appreciate everyone who's sharing your experience here. So a distribution here ranging from 0%, that would mean that this is all natural variability, all the way up to 100%. If we look at the data, the black dots represent the observed temperature year after year after year. This yellow line is the changes in the radiation coming from the sun. The orange line is volcanoes. So when a volcano erupts, it actually cools the Earth because of the aerosols that are injected into the upper atmosphere. Turns out that humans are responsible not just for 100, but for about 125% of the warming that we have seen. Greenhouse gases are that red line. Without understanding these human-caused processes, we can't make predictions. We can't explain what has happened in the Earth system. And scientists from the military, from NASA, from independent research institutes, even from oil and gas, I collaborate with researchers who work for Exxon. We're all finding the same thing. This is a high level of consensus, not politically driven. That is an example of this pollution. This is a picture of the remaining wilderness in the Earth system. The purple is the wilderness on land. The turquoise is the wilderness in the sea. Humans, a single species, have come to dominate 77% of the land surface and over 80% of the ocean. Isn't that a surprise? The ocean seems so distant and so untouched. We can actually access the ocean even better. And if we look at what's causing all this land use, it's overwhelmingly agriculture. But it's actually only a part of agriculture. This is taking all of the little parcels of land and then grouping them together in the contiguous US so we can see the size of these different things. For example, all of the golf courses, if you were to put them together, it'd be an area about that big. Well, if we look at this huge yellow area, this is the animal agriculture part. So not the food for people, but feed for our livestock. And remember, our livestock outweigh us by a large factor, so this actually makes sense. We've made a choice to subsidize that industry, but it has huge impacts. Again, our individual and communal choices transform the world around us. But remember, I gave you two things that were causing this issue. What were the two things? Dirty energy, unsustainable agriculture. That doesn't affect everything that's going on, or that doesn't explain everything that's going on. Here's some other trends. This is the change in interpersonal trust in the United States. This is the longest running data set on people's opinion of each other in the world. We can go back, it actually goes back past there. In 1972, more than half of the US population said people can generally be trusted. Today, it's less than a third. On the right is public trust in government. Right? A huge change from the 1950s, where most people agreed government could be trusted to be trying to make the right decisions. They're going to make mistakes, but generally they're trying. Right? Today, it's around 20%, only 1 in 5. And so I want to ask you, with your students, and you could think about your peers as well, what changes are you seeing in well-being and mental health? This could be positive, strong improvements, all the way down to a strong decrease, a decline in mental health. And these are, of course, your personal observations, so feel free to be completely frank. Well, a pretty strong consensus here. Not perfect, and I, again, appreciate those. I'm an optimist. And even in the darkest times, right, you can always find a silver lining. But this view that you have as educators is backed up by a very large body of social science research, showing that anxiety, depression, suicidal ideation, identity issues are rising dramatically. And this can't be explained easily by those two factors, right? Dirty energy and unsustainable agriculture. This is something broader that's going on. And I want to share with you something that I haven't shared with anyone. This is an email that I got a few years ago from a student. Just a totally typical email, right? Asking about what should my project be on? Right, I'd emphasized we're going to have this big project. I responded to that student. It was shocking. I responded just a few hours later, and it shows how my personal life has degraded since that time, right? Now it's a few weeks later. But I responded to the student and gave them some feedback, right? But I was focused on the assignment that the student was doing, rather than on the person. And just a few weeks after, this was my last exchange with this student because he took his life just a few weeks after this. And I think about this every day. Now, I realize that I and any of you who have experienced this thing, we can't predict or control what goes on. But I wish that I'd been willing to slow down and think about the person, and rather than emphasizing the great work that they were doing, recognize who they were and ask about them. So again, this is not just about numbers. We are facing a problem. And we need to think about both the physical world around us and the internal world that we're experiencing. And we drew the title of our talk from Wangari Maathai, who is a Nobel Prize winner, the first African woman to receive the Nobel Prize. And I just want to read a part of this. Activities that devastate the environment and societies continue unabated. Today we are faced with the challenge that calls for a shift in our thinking so that humanity stops threatening its life support system. We are called to assist the earth to heal her wounds and in the process heal our own. Indeed, to embrace the whole creation in all its diversity, beauty, and wonder. This will happen if we see the need to revive our sense of belonging to a larger family of life. So this is not society and environment. This is the way that we treat each other is reflected, is the cause of the environmental degradation that we're seeing, and we need a deep change. This has been pointed out by many, many writers and thinkers from all different areas, right? That to solve the environmental crisis, we must solve the problems of poverty, racial injustice, and war. Even the Pope, how inseparable the bond is between concern for nature, justice for the poor, commitment to society, and interior peace. We can't treat these as isolated issues. It's part of the same disorder that we're experiencing. And so we need to add on the real driver, and that is a loss of proper relationship with each other, a loss of respect, a loss of curiosity, a loss of the sense of beauty. Right? Have we felt isolated? Have we felt angry toward one another? And that is why we need people like you in every classroom who are helping rejuvenate and start that spark again. And so I'm going to skip over this. We want to talk about what we can do and how we can move in a better direction. And that's why I'm so grateful that Keely is here, because when there's a big change, we call it a movement. Isn't that beautiful, right? A societal movement. And we can think about that on the individual level as well. We're not just talking, but we're going to move and engage our whole bodies. And so Keely is going to teach us 4 of the fundamental ecological laws that we've come to. And this is an integration of traditional ecological knowledge from indigenous societies around the world and Western ecology as well.
Thanks, Ben. All right. So I would invite each of you to find a position of stretch. So that could be elongating your spine, or that could be standing up if your hip flexors are feeling like they're on fire right now. Any position of stretch, anywhere where you feel your sense of lengthening. Yes. Oh, yeah, lecture time. Whoosh. Got to be moving every 15 minutes. So as you're in this position of stretch, lengthening, I would invite you to close your eyes or find an inward focus. And within that inward focus, just take notice of your breath. You don't need to change it, but the first thing about connecting with others is noticing our internal rhythm, our natural inhale and exhale, so we can attune to others. And as we inhale and as we exhale, we are reminded that we are sustained by this earth with every breath. Now, I'd ask you this question. Reflect back earlier this morning and ask yourself, how did you get here? From where you were sleeping to this point, what was your mode of transportation? What things have you already connected to through touch? What things are you touching right now? What things are touching you through taste? That breakfast was delicious, but I was so nervous, or it looked so delicious, I was so nervous I could not eat it. So I was like, I will wait till after. So if you had breakfast today, through hearing, through sight. And I invite you to retrace your physical steps and the invisible traces and pathways that brought you to this moment. And I invite you to inhale with me one time. And a group community exhale. And if your eyes are closed, I invite you to gently open them and turn to your neighbor and connect to them, whether that's through eye-to-eye contact, a nudge, a high five, an embrace. Yeah. Even a question, what is your name? Just getting to know you. At this moment, we're creating a spark. Yeah. And if you met one neighbor, meet another neighbor. And again, it could just be with your focus. I see you. Thank you. Indeed. We could all sit down now. We are all connected to each other. I love these connections. Everyone definitely needed to connect. See, as humans, we all need to connect. So the first ecological law, simple to remember, because we just moved through it together. The sense of connecting ourselves with the environment and connecting ourselves with each other. So join with me in this gesture that everything, a hand clasp, is connected to everything. And if you want, you can grab the hands of somebody sitting by you. There we go. Everything is connected to everything. Your hands are nice and lotioned. Number 2, everything must go somewhere. The earth is in constant motion. We are in constant motion. Our bodies are 60% water, and we're fluids in. We're meant to adapt and absorb and redirect. Therefore, a movement concept that I like to explore in the second law is the wave. I love the wave. I could practice waving all day. It's simple, effective, and always visually delightful. So first, we're going to do a group wave, and then we're going to do isolated waves. So we're going to start on this side. Ben, can you lead? Because I'm going to run out of breath. We're going to start on this side of the room, and again, the wave is delightful. It just brings joy. I don't know why, but to be a community and doing something in organized choreography cannot be beat. All right, Ben, here we go. And and sorry. And I didn't say you need to do the woo. It just comes out of me naturally, too. And in that high pitch, it's weird. It's not like, woo. It's just always, woo. So there is a universal principle there, I think, with the voice pitch and the levity. Our next one is just a simple 4-point wave. So you can pick any shape with your hands, pick anywhere, and we are just going to go wrist, shoulder, shoulder, wrist. That's it. Or you could go, the typical wrist, shoulder, shoulder, wrist. Okay, new shape. It could be anyway, right? Wrist, shoulder, shoulder, wrist. I'll do a little one. Everything must go somewhere. That doesn't really go, right? I think that's what everything must go somewhere. That's the 8-point wave. Or there's a 12-point wave where you start doing your fingertips, knuckles, wrist, elbow, go. So, but the 4-point wave, we build up, right, in increments. So something simple, everything must go somewhere. Had a very shiny nose. Okay, ready? Let's say it with me, ready? Everything must go somewhere. I just made that melody up with Rudolph. Okay, so that's the second ecological law. The third is nature knows best, or the law of unintended consequences. Here we give references to cycles and systems and how they can be represented by the circular pathways and the circular shapes that we create with our bodies and also found in nature. So if you want, you can stand, but you don't have to as well. We're just going to do a little warm-up, move our joints from our head down to our feet. All right? So circular movement, circular pathways, all right? So just finding a circular motion. It doesn't have to go up and down. You could always find a circular motion, forward and back, side to side, and reversing that, because it's good to be even on each side. I don't know about you, but my neck is cracking a lot. My cervical. And then shoulders. Sometimes we are so forward that I always like to pay special attention to the back side, right? Getting those rhomboids engaged. Ooh, and let's reverse that. And something, I have like gut issues, so something I really enjoy is just moving my stomach, my organs, trying to get things moving. Ugh. Yeah, this is so beautiful. Why don't we do this all the time in lectures? Yeah, I have a lot of anxiety, so I just find that if I'm moving, get myself there, it helps to calm myself. Okay, and then we could do our hips. We're sitting down. Yeah. The legs. And then articulating through the metatarsals. The ankles. Nature knows best. And our movement motif for that is just a circular nature knows best. So this idea of coming with us and going there. Say it with me, please. Nature knows best. And the last ecological law, there ain't no such thing as a free lunch. I'm like, Ben, is that really it? And with this, it's the concept that everything comes from somewhere. So our last movement motif would just be this sense of receiving, that we receive something, and then we give it. That's such a beautiful gesture for the phrase, but let's try it. Ain't no such thing as a free lunch. Let's review those laws one more time with the motifs, all right? So everything is connected to everything. Everything is connected to everything. The second one, everything must go somewhere. The third one, nature knows best. Nature knows best. And then the last one, ain't no such thing as a free lunch. Thank you.
Thank you, Keely. And it's amazing to me, there already are examples from this morning. Think about everything must go somewhere and Frank's spiral jetty, right? We're going to be able to visualize where the things go. And Heather also challenged this last ecological law when she said, there's no such thing as a free lunch except for at Arts Express, right? But then she pointed out that's not true, right? That came from somewhere. And actually, I understand that all of the curriculum is paid for through the grant, but that's the one thing that you're paying for. So we're not just talking about the money, but also the sacrifice and the contributions. So we've learned, if there was a micro-credential for ecology, you would all have it now. And you've learned what you needed to learn. We also need to unlearn some things. And so I'm going to go over some myths, some very common misconceptions that can keep us from having that ecological integrated view. The first one is this idea of an ecosystem. Now, this is the formal definition of an ecosystem, the organisms and the environment interacting. So it's not just biology, it's not just hydrology and geology, it's those things interacting. And it comes from the Greek word oikos. Anybody heard that word before? Yogurt, of course, speaking of free lunches. So that's homemade, home-style yogurt, right? But what's missing from this picture of an ecosystem? There's no piano, that's true. So, people, right? There are no people. And we did an analysis of almost 500 water cycle diagrams. We found that 85% of them showed no people. Well, guess what? That water cycle doesn't exist anywhere, right? You can't understand what's going on without people. And so even when we're talking about nature knows best, we're thinking about nature in an inclusive way that includes humankind. Humans aren't just destroyers. We're a positive part of the environment. We have to be thinking about that view. And Sophie Hill, who has a breakout session, if you want new diagrams that show people, you can go to watercycle.byu.edu. That has a whole selection of completely open source materials that you can draw from that will show this human integrated, the real water cycle. And if we look in the past, humans have actually been dominant in the Earth system for 12 millennia. We've modified most. And so, again, humans are not a negative or new thing in the system. We need to be careful because of how big and powerful we've gotten. And the interaction goes in the other way, too. our health depends on nature. If you were to take our lungs and spread out all of the membranes, it would cover about 2 tennis courts worth of ground. Right? That's the interface between us and the environment. The second myth that we need to displace is this idea of a competitive model where it's the economy, it's the environment, it's society. And this is a really prevalent myth. We even see it in sustainable development. But I think this is fundamentally wrong. It's giving us these choices between what we're going to do. And with that ecological understanding, we realize that we live in a nested system where human society is completely within the Earth system, and the economy is just a part of human society. It changes how we're going to prioritize and approach these issues. And the CDC and World Health Organization and Department of Human Health Services are accepting and supporting this view more and more through this One Health concept. The next myth is the difference between personal action and systemic change. And I imagine that your students might have brought this up, right? Like, hey, why am I trying so hard when really the system's just making me use a car, or whatever that choice is, right? This is a false choice. And anybody who's been involved in a major change realizes that it's not personal action or systemic change. In fact, if we think about individual, collective, and system change, it very often starts with an individual that then leads to collective and system change through time. So it's personal action and systemic change is what we need. And they reinforce each other in a wonderful way. As the system changes, it gives us more choices. And I love this quote by Margaret Mead: "Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has." Another myth is that it's too late. We've gone off the cliff. I actually find that climate doomers are much more common now than climate deniers. The climate doomers are saying, why should we even try? Right? We've gone over these thresholds. And I understand where they get that idea from. We publish these papers that talk about thresholds. Right? This is a global assessment of different thresholds that either we're crossing now or will soon cross because of climate change. But this doesn't mean that we go beyond it and then there's no coming back. It's an assessment of risk. It's like speeding in your car. You know, would we ever say, I've been speeding for the last hour, it's too late for me to slow down and drive safely? No, the longer that we stay speeding, the more dangerous it is for us and those around us. So we need to be thinking about the more we impact nature in a negative way, the worse that it is. It's not all or nothing. The final myth is that we have to get it right the first time. The perfectionist myth. This is a wildfire that started in 2020. Some of you might have seen this. This was in the foothills of Timpanogos. It was caused by a policeman who was practicing at a fire range. It's called the range fire because of that. And it seemed really, really devastating. It happened late in the season. I went on a mountain bike ride just a month later, and it looked like a moonscape. Right? You couldn't think of a natural environment that was more destroyed. And yet just weeks later, we started to see the recovery of that ecosystem. And just a year later, what looked like devastation reemerged as life. And so actually our failures, we shouldn't be afraid of them because it's an opportunity to reinvent and try again. So there's a lot of fear and anxiety. One day I heard that plastic bags were better than paper, and then the next day I heard it was the other way around, right? And we don't need to be obsessed with those small things. Let's try to be learning real information. And then I think this is the final myth. There are lots of myths, but there's a belief that you have to have some kind of special qualification. You have to have some kind of degree or micro-credential to be an ecologist. You don't. These are pictures of what we call ecosystem engineers. And they have almost nothing in common. We have got everything from termites and starfish to sea otters and sharks. The thing that they have in common is that they shape their ecosystem. They provide habitat. And we have no way of predicting what species are keystone species until they're gone and the ecosystem collapses. And then we realize, the starfish were really important. And it's the same way with people in communities. It doesn't matter what your background is, what you look like. What matters is, are you connecting and thinking about how can I create a better environment? So, speaking of the doomers, are there any successes? We looked at that terrifying word cloud of all of the problems that we're facing. I want you to turn to your neighbor and take a minute to try to identify an environmental success. This could be something big or small.
Refillable water bottles. Yeah, that's true. Reusable bags. That's great.
Okay, take 15 more seconds. And we'll save these and look at these afterwards. This is wonderful to see these success stories. Some of them very small and specific, right? Things that were brought about by a small group, others expansive and large. Increases in awareness. The California condor almost gone and now recovering, right? I'm going to tick through a few. We solved the hole in the ozone. A global agreement. Every single country on the planet signed on and said, we're going to stop using chlorofluorocarbons. The ozone hole is starting to recover. There's been visionary legislation all around the world. Here's just from the European Union and US, the Clean Air Act, Clean Water Act. We're seeing improvements in air quality across the country. Sustainable economic trends. Did you know that 90% of all new power that was built last year was wind and solar? Isn't that amazing? And that's globally. That's happening because of these amazing changes, investments in research development, and then major humanitarian advances. And it's important to know about these successes because if we don't know what success looks like, how are we going to replicate it, right? If all we know are the obstacles and the problems and times that we failed. There also is a change. Environmental issues are no longer just a Republican or Democrat issue, right? We're making progress there. And there's a cycle that I think about a lot that we're going to see embodied with Keely and her dancers, where we start with learning and awareness of an issue. It's often a friend, a family member that brings this to our awareness, and that makes us start to care. We have hope and faith that we can do something about it. If that doesn't happen, then we just stop and say, it's too bad that the world is built that way. This leads to organizing and planning and then acting. And this isn't just a cycle, it's a web, right? Where each of these steps can reinforce different parts of the web and strengthen community. So I'll turn it over to you, Keely, and your dancers.
Okay, thank you. Connect dancers, can you guys come out? So this piece that you're going to see was actually performed with Connect, and they've already gone to several elementary schools to perform this work, and it's built on this cycle, this idea of the natural, then being interrupted by the unnatural, and then us all needing to have reconciliation back to the natural within a new order. So without further ado, Bodies of Water, based upon the Utah Lake.
Thank you. I think that you see this cycle really differently when you see it enacted out, or when we realize we cause harm, we recognize the harm, we try to repair and rejuvenate and replenish and start over again. We're going to skip over this portion of the presentation, but if you're interested in the Utah Lake story, you can find the Utah Lake story at utahlake.byu.edu to tell the story of this really strange but illustrative battle that happened around the lake that we live by. Its deep history, the people that were the caretakers of the lake are turning away from them, right? And indeed, violent conflict that led to an inappropriate relationship, an overuse of the resource, and a depletion of Utah Lake, including its disappearance in the 1930s, loss of most of its native species, and the eventual listing of one of the endemic species that lives there, the June sucker. And what's amazing to me is we've come full circle on this, where we saw the damage that was causing, and a community-led effort that involved individuals, educational institutions, government entities, private business, work together and have brought the June sucker back from only having 300 individuals in the whole world to around 50,000 being observed, spawning in the Provo River, American Fork River, and Spanish Fork River this year. An amazing story of reconciliation and a decline through time in the algal blooms as we start to treat our waste rather than leave it on the stairs, right? Recapture and be responsible, since everything must go somewhere. And it's left us in a place where the lake is now a beautiful ecosystem in recovery that people are rediscovering all times of year. And I encourage you, if you're interested, the Utah Lake Photography Club on Facebook and Instagram is a wonderful place to go to see the lake. It's beautiful in every season and from every angle. But also to realize that the work is not done. Right at this moment of accomplishment, as things got better, there was a group that came in and started to say that the lake was a cesspool. They started to attack the lake and say that nothing was working. What we need to do is throw away the ecosystem that's there, move away from that heritage, and reconstruct it, re-engineer it in our own image. I think that doesn't appreciate many of the ecological laws. But we ended up in a situation where this proposal was so far along before it became public that there was legislation. There was $10 million of taxpayer money that was underwriting the project, billions of dollars of investment in the project. And it was going to damage the lake's ability to be resilient and recover. And we felt a lot like this, trying to push this rock up a mountain, but feeling like it was going to roll back and crush us. And an everyday accidental environmentalist, this is Kay Nelson, one of my environmental heroes. She is showing her superpower here, which is connecting with people and caring about people. She started talking to her neighbors, her quilting friends. She started reaching out to elected officials, the mayor of Provo and our Representative Stratton. She started talking with indigenous leaders and scientists to understand the functioning of the lake. And in a very short period of time, we learned that this was not the first time the lake was threatened, nor will it be the last. In the 1970s, we tried to drill on Utah Lake for oil during the oil crisis. Well, the state of Utah at that time was the defender of the lake. It took this all the way to the Supreme Court. In the 1980s, we tried to dike off big portions of the lake and build a giant island in the center of it, all in the name of progress and quote-unquote restoration. But Kay and her coalition brought people together, and the scientific community came and shared their opinions. 600 citizens came together and rallied at the Capitol. We saw cities do their part and pass these resolutions. And finally, there was a bill that was passed, HB 240, that led to the eventual rejection of that project, which seemed, again, completely inevitable. But we see the battle continue. Just yesterday, a judge refused to completely close the doors on the project, and so that'll be moving toward a trial in the coming weeks. And This Saturday, there will be an event to celebrate Utah Lake, the progress that's been made, the importance of people. And so again, we're going to see this cycle, and it is not something that should discourage us. As we learn to be more oriented in a circle rather than a line, it isn't discouraging to find yourself back where you started, because there are new people there and a new problem. So it's not a situation like this. It's a situation like this, where we work together, and it's in fact inevitable. The boulder is already starting to move in a good direction. Everything from cleaning up our energy system with renewable energy to each of us taking more awareness and care toward one another, taking the time to breathe and be aware. And just last night, I was finalizing this presentation that I should have finished many weeks ago, and my son came to me, and he was really upset because he'd been fighting with his brother, and I'm the worst dad in the world. And so I gave them a consequence that both of them couldn't play the Nintendo. And he thought this was so unfair. And I thought, I've got to finish this presentation, Henry. This is more important. And then I thought, I'm reinforcing the bad cycle right now. And I took the time and I talked with him, and it was the most wonderful part of my day yesterday. It wasn't what I intended to do, but we are so grateful for you, for the times that you've tolerated and embraced disruptions to your schedule, the times that you've stopped and spoken with a student or with a potential funder or with a friend who needed a word of kindness. And so with that, we're going to invite you to reflect about the communities that you're a part of, the different networks that you connect with. And we want to end with this idea of the law of the honorable harvest. Because the 4 ecological laws are wonderful in that they teach us how the system works. But we need to go to a more traditional place to understand how we can be good partners in the system. And the law of the honorable harvest is taught by many indigenous cultures, especially in North and South America. This phrasing of it comes from Robin Wall Kimmerer, a Potawatomi Indian from the eastern United States. And it teaches us, it provides these principles, some of which are circular and even repetitive, of how we should be acting. And so we'll switch roles here. And
Well, due to time, I'm wondering, Kelly, do we need to end at 10? They should do this. Okay. I was like, we can forego this, but we practiced this, Ben and I. We were switching roles where I would be the scientist now and the lecturer, and he would be the dancer. And we practiced this outside, so we're going to see Ben's skills here, and then we'll invite you guys all to do it, too.
And we felt like if I could do it, then motion is not out of reach for any of you.
Yes. So first, Ben, take the stage.
Okay.
Ask permission of the ones whose lives you seek.
And the purpose of this is to think about, and we'll invite you to do this in a moment, what's a motion that can embody that concept. So
But we'll first have Ben demonstrate, so you guys
I'll try to improvise.
If he can do it, I can do it.
Oh, and that's great. It's being streamed on Instagram now.
Absolutely.
A safe space, okay.
So ask permission of the ones whose lives you seek and abide by the answer.
You don't need to applaud.
Number 2, never take the first, never take the last.
Wonderful balance.
Harvest in a way that minimizes harm. And now will you all join in the next ones? Your own gestures. You don't have to follow Ben, but again, he has his own. You create your own. Number 4, take only what you need and leave some for others. Use everything that you take. Take only that which is given to you. Share it as the earth has shared with you. Be grateful. Reciprocate the gift. And lastly, sustain the ones who sustain you. and the earth will last forever.
And now we'll end with another embodiment of many of these concepts. Thank you for sharing this time with us.
Thank you so much. So we can lift the screen. So this last dance was created based upon the 4 ecological laws that we reviewed, or that we went over earlier today. Can we remember them? Number 1, everything is connected to everything. Number 2, everything must go somewhere. Number 3, nature knows best. Number 4, ain't no such thing as a free lunch. Now this dance you see is with a quartet of women. They will be performing it at the Global Water Dance. And if you'll notice, a lot of the movement, I do a lot of outdoor dancing. So a lot of the movement, I know, depending on the textures of the ground and stuff, you can't really go to the ground as much, you can't really jump. So I do create dances with a certain vocabulary that people can do based upon the unevenness of the structure. And so if you go, why aren't they rolling around like contemporary dancers always do, that constant up and down? It's because they're going to be in the dirt or the water sometime soon. So without further ado, the 4 ecological laws.
With the hard stories we have to face with science in our world today, the arts help us digest and understand. And Keely and Ben have just given a wonderful demonstration of how the arts and the sciences blend together to teach, to inform, to help us experience, and then to have the creativity to solve the things that we need to solve. Let's give it up for Ben and Keely.